Hello everybody and welcome back to Sector 6. Today what we're going to be talking about is we're going to be looking into the possibility of Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to PC. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe for future content, and don't forget to hit the notification bell, that way you don't miss any videos that we do on the channel. But we're going to get straight on with it, but before we do, we're going to have a quick look at the GeForce leak again, because that's kind of reignited the fire under the Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to PC conversation. It didn't really go away, but definitely the leak kind of put it back in people's minds. Now GeForce have come out and they've made a statement, so we're just going to quickly read the statement. Nvidia is aware of an unauthorized published games list with both released and/or speculative titles, used only for internal tracking and testing. Inclusion on the list is neither confirmation nor an announcement of any game. Nvidia took immediate action and removed access to the list. No confidential game builds or personal information were exposed. So that's a really short, really quick statement. Now, a lot of people are kind of taking this as, oh well, it's fake, obviously. That's how a lot of people are seeing this. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. The statement itself kind of indicates to me that with it being a list comprised of released and/or speculative titles, it makes me believe that this isn't someone just sat there at a computer going, I wonder what games I would like, because they've said that this list is used for internal tracking and testing. What are you tracking and testing if nothing exists? Like literally, just think about it for a second. If this list is for internal tracking and testing, why are some of these games on the list if they don't exist? Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense at all. I personally believe that this list is real. It doesn't necessarily mean that every game on the list is going to come out. What I think it is I think this is, like it says with speculative titles, they've heard something potentially. I mean, let's look at it from the position of Final Fantasy IX. They've potentially heard from Square Enix, because obviously all these companies are linked in with each other and they have conversations with each other. They've potentially heard that a Final Fantasy IX Remake is in the pipeline, maybe. There's conversations going on about it at Square Enix. So it gets added to the list, because it is a speculative title that could one day come to PC. That's the bare minimum it is. That's not even considering the possibility that the game's already well into development and they've let Nvidia know that it's coming. Now, I don't think the second scenario is likely. I don't think they're anywhere near. I personally think that if there is a Final Fantasy IX Remake coming, they're in the very, 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 very early stages of it. Like, they've literally just kind of floated the possibility, like, yeah, we could do this, because otherwise there's no reason for it to be on this list. There's no reason whatsoever. That's my take on it, at least. I personally think you look at it logically, and you can see that there is a strong possibility that these games could come. I don't think this list says that they are definitely coming, but it at the very least confirms that there have been conversations about a Final Fantasy IX Remake. I refuse to believe that some guy sat working in Nvidia has just randomly one day gone, you know what, I'm going to add Final Fantasy IX to this list. I just don't think that's the case. Ludicrous. Ludicrous. Nvidia are kind of cocked up a little bit with this statement as well, because they could quite easily have come out and said, yeah, this was just kind of a wish list that a couple of employees put together. It was hosted on the servers for some reason. We've got rid of it and we've had a word with them. That's what they could have come out and said. But no, they've come out and said that these games are speculative or release titles and that it's used for internal tracking and testing. The fact that this list is used for something confirms the legitimacy of the titles on the list. That's my take on it, at least. Now, there is one possibility, and that is this Final Fantasy IX Remake is referring to the remaster of the original game, but that released 5 years ago. So I don't know if it'd still be on this list for testing, because it's already out, doesn't need to be tested. So yeah, I do think that there is a possibility that we could see some of the games on this list. I think the most likely one is Tactics Remastered. I don't think there'd be a massive amount of work to do in making Tactics Remastered. We've seen that they're already going through a lot of the older games with the pixel remasters and remastering them. It would kind of make sense for them to remaster Tactics. That's my take on it, at least. But this 9 remake, I don't think it's dead in the water. I think it's possible. But yeah, let's get to the point of the video, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, this leak has kind of spurred the discussion on about Final Fantasy VII Remake eventually coming to PC. And people have been going on about Remake coming to PC pretty much since Remake came out, even though they knew it was going to be a year-long exclusive. They were kicking off about it, they were unhappy it wasn't on PC. Then the year ran out, and it still didn't come to PC. And then we see Intergrade come to PS5, which then extended the exclusivity by 6 more months. I believe that runs till Christmas, December. So it's going to be exclusive again. Well, it is exclusive again right now to PlayStation 5. So we're not going to see it on PC at any point before Christmas. But will we see it at some point? And personally, even before this GeForce leak came out, I personally felt that we would see the game on PC at some stage. Now that we've seen this list, it pretty much confirms that to me, because everything was pointing towards Remake coming out on PC at some stage. Otherwise, they wouldn't have wasted the time saying, oh, it's a 1-year exclusive and then it's a 6-month exclusive. They would have just said, it's a PlayStation exclusive, deal with it, if it wasn't going to any other console. That would have been it. That would have been the narrative. From day one, it is a PlayStation exclusive. That's not what they've done. They've said, yeah, it's going to be an exclusive for a while. And then they've gone, oh, it's going to be exclusive for a bit longer. And personally, I think this all leans in to the release of Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2. I don't think we're going to see Remake come to PC or any other system for that matter until Remake Part 2 is announced. I'm not saying that we'll have a release date, I'm not saying that that's the point. As soon as, maybe not as soon as the first trailer drops, but roughly at the same time, possibly even in the same presentation, we'll get a trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, or we'll get a teaser for Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and then straight after that they'll be like, and coming soon to PC, bam, Final Fantasy VII Remake. And the reason they'll do this is because it's a perfect marketing tool. People will play the game on PC, and then Square Enix will be like, well, you're not getting Part 2 on PC until Part 3 is on the way. And they'll do the exact same thing with Part 3. Like, you will not see Part 3, you will not see Part 2 on PC until Part 3 comes out, or, again, like I say, Part 3 is announced. So, potentially a year before the release of the game. So yeah, that's my guess. It just makes sense. You know, you announce Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2 is coming, the hype builds immediately because of all the people that have played Final Fantasy VII Remake. Then you go, oh, and by the way, we're going to drop it on PC. You get all those players on PC that have been kicking off for the game for so long to play it, and then you say, and now Part 2 is exclusive. And it won't work for everybody. I'm not going to suggest that every single person who plays the game on PC will come and buy a PS5 just purely to play Part 2. That's not going to happen. But there will be some. And it just makes sense as a marketing tool. I do not think they'll do it any other way. I think if we get an announcement for a PC release of Final Fantasy VII Remake, we should expect that Part 2 trailer will drop, you know, the first trailer. That's going to drop soon after, and vice versa. If we get a Remake Part 2 announcement or like a teaser trailer very soon after, we'll hear about a PC version of Remake finally coming out. It'll probably drop 6 months before. You know, we'll hear about it about a year before. It'll probably drop about 6 months before. Gives people time to play the game but still be hyped for Part 2. That's what I think, at least. It makes the most sense. What about you? What do you think on this? Do you think that Final Fantasy VII Remake will come to PC at some point? Do you think it's going to be similar to the way that I've kind of laid it out here, or do you think it's going to be completely different? Do you think that, you know, they could drop it tomorrow maybe, or something like that? I don't know. And also, what do you think about this GeForce leak? Like I say, they've not come out and said it's fake. They've come out and said that a lot of the games on the list are speculative. But why are these games speculative? Why? Who is talking about a Final Fantasy IX Remake other than, like, super fans of Final Fantasy IX, obviously, you know, the people who love the game? Who's talking about it other than them before this list? Nobody. Nobody's talking about it because nobody thought it was coming. Now this list's there, and you have to ask the question, why is the game on the list? That's the question. Why is the game on the list? And I think it's because it's at least been discussed. But yeah, drop your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and sub for future content, but more importantly than anything, have a great day.